Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. Summer Newman's appearance in Paris should have been a picture-perfect escape, a glamorous European reset with her baby cradled against her casket, the city of light stretching endlessly before her, but rather, it becomes the setting for the most explosive secret disclosure of her life, a verity so staggering it leaves everyone who hears it hugely speechless, because the moment Summer way off the aeroplane with her son, it's clear this trip isn't about fashion, love, or reinvention, but about running from a secret that has eventually caught up with her, a secret that has visited her since the moment she discovered she was pregnant and made a choice she believed would cover everyone she loved, only to realize too late that falsehoods don't vanish, they travel, they stay, and they explode when you least anticipate it. And in Summer's case, Paris becomes the center of that explosion when an unanticipated hassle forces her to defy the one question she's been hopeless to avoid: who's her baby's natural father? Because despite the story she's told her family, her musketeers, and indeed herself, the verity is far messier, far more emotional, and far more ruinous than anyone in Genoa city ever imagined. And the shockwaves begin nearly incontinently when Summer bumps into a familiar face in a quiet Parisian cafe, a man who freezes when he sees her baby, whose eyes loiter just to alternate too long, whose breath visibly catches, and in that moment, Summer knows the history she buried has followed her across the ocean, because this man isn't just a ghost from her history, he's the crucial to a secret she's been guarding with her life, a secret tied to a night she no way planned, a moment of vulnerability when grief, wrathfulness, and craving collided, leading to a decision that would change everything, and as Summer struggles to keep her countenance, the pressure becomes unsupportable, because the man knows he sees it in the baby's eyes, in the unmistakable familiarity of her features, and when he eventually whispers, "She looks like me," the world seems to cock beneath Summer's bases, because no matter how far she's run, no matter how precisely she's rewritten the narrative, DNA doesn't lie, and neither does fate, and suddenly the verity that's been lurking in the murk bursts into the light: the natural father of Summer Newman's baby is someone no bone would ever anticipate. Someone whose connection to Summer rewrites times of history and detonates multiple connections back in Genoa city, and as word begins to spread, first in hushed whispers, also in frantic phone calls, the disclosure sends shockwaves across mainlands, because this isn't just a reproach, it's a treason concentrated with heartache, remorse, and consequences that can't be undone, and Summer's mama, Phyllis Summers, is blindsided when she learns the verity. Realizing her son didn't just hide the gestation details, she constructed an entire alternate reality to cover herself from judgment, and while Phyllis understands despair better than anyone, indeed she's left speechless by the identity of the baby's father, because this man represents untreated business, emotional landmines, and an unborn no bone saw coming. And back in Genoa city, Kyle Abbott feels the impact like a physical blow when the verity reaches him, because suddenly moments that no way relatively made sense fall into place, and the consummation that Summer carried this alone, that she didn't trust him enough to tell the verity, cuts deeper than any treason he's ever endured. While away, alliances shift, old injuries renew, and people begin to question everything they knew about Summer, because the woman who arrived in Paris wasn't just a mama seeking peace, she was a strategist running from fallout she knew would destroy the fragile balance of her world. And as the natural father struggles with the disclosure himself, torn between shock, guilt, and an inarguable pull toward the child he no way knew was, Summer is forced to defy the consequences of her silence, realizing that keeping him down didn't cover her baby, it burgled her son of the verity, and when he eventually demands answers, demanding to know why she kept him in the dark, Summer breaks down, confessing that fear drove every decision, fear of losing control, fear of judgment, fear of repeating the miscalculations of the history, and sweat that the verity would destroy everything she was trying to rebuild. But in Paris, with the verity exposed, there's nowhere left to hide, and the emotional battle that follows is raw, ruinous, and indelible, because this isn't about reproach presently, it's about a child, about responsibility, and about a future that suddenly looks veritably different for everyone involved. And when the natural father makes it clear he wants to be part of his son's life, Summer is left at a crossroads, realizing that the choice she made alone can no longer be hers alone, and as Genoa city braces for the fallout, guardianship battles, shattered connections, and a reckoning that will review Summer Newman ever, one thing becomes sorrowfully clear her Paris appearance didn't set her free. It touched off the moment the Verity could no longer be contained, and the identity of her son's father will leave everyone, from Genoa City to Paris, absolutely, incontrovertibly, and permanently speechless. The fallout from that Parisian disclosure doesn't simply ripple outward, it detonates, because once the Verity about Summer Newman's baby daddy is out, there's no containing the emotional campfire it ignites, and Summer snappily realizes that the hardest part isn't the secret coming out, but watching the people she loves process a reality that contradicts everything she's ever let them believe, starting with the natural father himself, who oscillates between unbelief and an inviting sense of loss as he grapples with the idea that he has missed every twinkle, every insomniac night, every corner, and every silent pledge Summer made to their son alone, and his pain isn't quiet or state, it's raw, jagged, and deeply particular, because while Summer believed she was guarding everyone by keeping him down, he sees it as a theft of commodity irreplaceable, and when he looks at the baby again, holding her for the first time with pulsing hands, the emotional graveness of that moment hits Summer like a freight train, because she sees it also, the connection she tried to deny, the inarguable bond written into the veritably fabric of their child, and for the first time since she discovered she was pregnant, Summer isn't just hysterical of being judged, she's hysterical she was wrong. Hysterical that the control she cleaved to so fiercely may have caused more damage than the Verity ever could have, and as the natural father still promises the baby that he's then now, that he's not going anywhere, Summer's precisely erected emotional walls begin to deteriorate, indeed as fear sets in over what this means when they return to Genoa City, because Paris was supposed to be neutral ground, a temporary caching place, not the helipad for a public reckoning that will upend patrimonies, connections, and power dynamics she knows all too well, and the moment the news reaches Victor Newman, everything changes, because Victor doesn't reply with shock, he reacts with strategy, incontinently calculating what this disclosure means for the Newman name, for business optics, and for control, and his icy response sends a bite through Summer when he calls to inform her that secrets of this magnitude don't stay private, that maternity changes everything, and that whether she likes it or not, her son is now a Newman heritage issue, a statement that terrifies Summer further than any public counter-reaction ever could, because she knows what Victor's involvement means, attorneys, influence, and lines drawn in the beach, and while Phyllis rushes to Paris to be at her son's side, torn between motherly sympathy and stewing frustration over being shut out, Ka remains in Genoa City, twisting as he renewals every discussion, every half-verity, every moment he trusted Summer only to realize he no way truly knew what she was carrying, and the emotional treason hits him harder than the maternity shock itself, because it forces him to defy the painful reality that Summer didn't see him as a safe place presently, and that consummation leaves him concave, angry, and dangerously changeable, while whispers begin to spread across city, turning into enterprise, judgment, and sides being chosen, because Genoa City thrives on reproach, and this one touches too numerous important players to fade still, and as Summer and the natural father attempt to have an adult discussion about co-parenting, boundaries, and the future, it becomes sorrowfully clear that their once undetermined feelings are still veritably important alive, stewing beneath the face, complicating every practical discussion with old injuries, moping magnet, and the pang of what might have been, and when he asks Summer the question she's been dreading, whether she ever planned to tell him she can't answer right down, because the Verity is uncomfortable and deeply defective, embedded not in malignancy, but in fear and tone preservation, and admitting that forces her to eventually defy the interpretation of herself she came when she decided she could handle everything alone, a consummation that brings both clarity and crushing guilt, and as they walk through Paris with the baby between them, playing the part of a family they no way planned to be. The symbolism isn't lost on Summer, because every passerby sees commodity she tried desperately to avoid admitting, that her son deserves verity, connection, and stability, not precisely curated falsehoods designed to maintain control, and yet, just as Summer begins to consider a future where honesty replaces secretiveness, another lemon drops, because back in Genoa City, legal maneuvering has formally begun, and Summer receives word that questions of guardianship, visit rights, and indeed occupancy are being bandied without her concurrence, kindling a fierce motherly instinct that reminds everyone involved that while secrets may have been her mistake, her son isn't a log-rolling chip, and the battle that follows, through tense videotape calls and emotional duns, reveals just how high the stakes have come, because this isn't just about who the father is presently, it's about who gets to shape the child's future. And Summer finds herself standing her ground in a way she no way has ahead, pushing back against important forces that assume they can decide for her, and in doing so, she begins to reclaim a sense of agency that was lost the moment fear mandated her choices, and when the natural father sides with her, averring that opinions about their son should be made together, not mandated by heritage or power. It marks a turning point, not just for theorco-parenting dynamic, but for the emotional balance between them, because for the first time, Summer isn't alone in the storm she created, and that participated responsibility brings both relief and new complications, especially when old passions resurface in quiet moments, moping ganders, and the implied mindfulness that commodity untreated still exists between them, and as they prepare to return to Genoa City, knowing the real battle has indeed begun, Summer reflects on the trip that brought her then, realizing that Paris didn't just expose her secret, it forced her to defy the cost of control, the weight of fear, and the power of verity, and while the road ahead promises conflict, heartache, and delicate choices, one thing is certain: Summer Newman will no way be suitable to hide behind half-trueness again, because her son's actuality has rewritten the rules of her life, binding her future to a verity that refuses to stay buried. And as Genoa City braces for the explosive return of a mama, a child, and a natural father no bone saw coming, the question is no longer who the baby daddy is, it's how far everyone involved is willing to go when love, heritage, and verity collide, because the secret is out, the stakes are sky high, and Summer's world will no way be the same again. As the flight back to Genoa City looms closer, the emotional weight of everything that has unraveled in Paris grows heavier with each passing hour, because Summer Newman now understands that returning home won't just mean facing questions, it'll mean standing in the center of a storm that touches every corner of her life, and the consummation settles deep in her casket as she watches her son sleep, blissfully ignorant of the chaos her actuality has unleashed, and for the first time since getting a mama, Summer allows herself to truly sit with the fear she's been overrunning, the fear that the verity, formerly revealed, cannot be controlled or softened, and that no matter how precisely she chooses her words, someone will be hurt, commodity will be lost, and nothing will ever go back to the way it was, because secrets don't simply end, they transfigure into consequences, and the natural father feels it too, pacing the Paris hostel room like a man preparing for battle. Knowing that formerly they land, there will be no neutral ground, no polite distance, no pretending this is just another reproach that will fade with time, because a child changes the rules permanently. And when he confesses to Summer that he's alarmed, not of public scrutiny, but of failing a son who formerly merited further than silence, Summer is struck by the irony that the very vulnerability she stressed from him is now the thing binding them together, and that participated fear becomes the fragile foundation on which they begin to bandy what comes next, though neither of them is naive enough to believe those plans will survive first contact with Genoa City, where commitment are transactional, feelings are weaponized, and power infrequently sleeps, and the moment their airplane touches down, it's clear that the fallout has formally arrived ahead of them, because whispers trail them through the field, eyes loiter too long on the baby, and Summer knows incontinently that the story has blurted, twisted and stretched in ways she no way authorized, turning a deeply particular verity into public spectacle, and when Phyllis meets them at the gate, her fierce grasp is both comfort and evidence that the war has begun, because Phyllis doesn't just see her son, she sees pitfalls, strategies, and the unmistakable signs that Victor Newman is formerly several moves ahead, and sure enough, the first sanctioned bombardment lands before Summer indeed makes it home, when legal documents arrive outlining proposed guardianship fabrics and visit schedules, language so cold and clinical it makes Summer's blood run cold wave, because nowhere in those runners is there room for the emotional complexity of how this child came into the world, and the wrathfulness that ignites inside her is sharp and clarifying, pushing away guilt and second-guessing, because whatever miscalculations she made in the history, she refuses to let her son come a log-rolling chip in someone differently's power play, and that defiance becomes her armor as she confronts Victor face to face, a showdown creaking with implied history and collective recognition, because Victor sees not a reckless youthful woman, but a mama who shares his ruthless instinct to cover her own. And while he no way admits it audibly, that similarity unsettles him, forcing him to review just how far he can push without provoking a war he might not completely control. And yet, the pressure doesn't dissipate, it simply shifts, because Kyle, watching all of this unfold from the sidelines, feels decreasingly inapplicable in a story he formerly believed would include him, and the pain of that consummation hardens into resentment, especially when he eventually confronts Summer, demanding to know if any of what they participated was real, and the question devastates her, because the answer isn't simple or clean, and in trying to explain that love and fear can attend, that people can mean well and still beget detriment, Summer realizes how important damage silence can do, and Kyle, unfit to attune the woman he loved with the choices she made, walks down with a futurity that feels like a door slamming shut, leaving Summer to suffer a relationship that did end with treason, but with distance and distrust, and as if the emotional risk weren't formerly unsupportable, the natural father finds himself pulled into Genoa City's enduring limelight, scanned not just as a man, but as a symbol of reproach, of surprise, of a unborn no bone prepared for, and the pressure threatens to fracture the conditional consanity he and Summer have erected, because while they agree on guarding their son, they disaccord on everything differently, from how public they should be to how important influence they allow extended family to have, and those dissensions comb up old arguments from a history that no way completely healed, reminding them that participated responsibility doesn't abolish undetermined injuries, and yet, in quiet moments, late-night feedings, participated horselaugh over small mileposts, the simple act of passing their son from one set of arms to another commodity shifts, commodity neither of them can completely name, because parenting strips down pretense, leaving only verity, and in that verity, Summer begins to see the man not as a mistake or a secret, but as a father trying to step up under insolvable circumstances, and that consummation complicates everything, especially when rumors swirl that a guardianship battle could turn vicious, forcing Summer to consider the unbelievable, whether staying in Genoa City is truly what's stylish for her child, and the idea of leaving again tempts her, not as an escape, but as a defensive instinct, though she knows running now would only confirm every blameworthiness made against her, and so she stays, planting her bases in the very place that thrives on tearing people piecemeal, determined to rewrite the narrative not through falsehoods, but through adaptability. And as weeks pass, alliances shift in unanticipated ways, with some surprising sympathizers arising and others revealing their true motives, and through it all, Summer's identity transforms, because she's no longer just Phyllis's son, or Victor's granddaughter, or Kyle's former love, she's a mama whose opinions carry weight beyond herself, and that clarity gives her strength she didn't know she held, allowing her to face courtrooms, competitions, and public judgment without recoiling. And when the day eventually comes for all parties to sit across from one another, legal brigades poised and feelings running grandly, Summer speaks not from fear, but from conviction, articulating boundaries, prospects, and a vision for her son's future embedded in stability and verity, and the room falls silent, parenthood, deepening their bond. Because for the first time everyone understands that this isn't a reproach to be managed, it's a family being readdressed in real time, and that consummation forces concessions, negotiations, and uncomfortable acknowledgments from people habituated to getting their way, and while no outgrowth is perfect, an agreement is reached that reflects commodity rare in Genoa City balance, and as Summer walks out of that room holding her son, adjoined by a natural father who has proven he won't vanish, she knows the trip ahead will still be complicated, still messy, still filled with moments of mistrustfulness, but it'll be honest, and in that honesty, there's freedom she no way set up in secretiveness, because Paris may have been where the verity exploded, but Genoa City is where Summer Newman learns to live with it, embracing a future forged not by fear, but by courage, responsibility, and a love important enough to survive the most shocking reveal of her life. Summer Newman's life in Genoa City after Paris is nothing short of a delicate, high-stakes balancing act, because the shockwaves of her baby's paternity revelation continue to ripple outward, reaching corners of her world she never imagined could be affected, and every step she takes is measured, calculated, yet tinged with vulnerability, because she knows that even a single misstep could ignite a new scandal or destroy fragile alliances she's only just begun to rebuild, and the weight of that knowledge presses on her every moment. From the quiet mornings when her daughter coos softly in her arms to the tense afternoons filled with meetings, confrontations, and whispered rumors that seem to follow her wherever she goes, because Genoa City thrives on secrets, and now that hers has been exposed, it's like a beacon drawing attention, scrutiny, and judgment, and Summer feels the pressure more acutely than ever, realizing that being a mother now means navigating not only the emotional demands of parenthood but also the intricate social and political landscape of a city that has never forgiven deception lightly, and she finds herself constantly scanning for threats, measuring words, calculating responses, and anticipating consequences, because one wrong move could undermine everything she and the biological father are trying to build for their daughter. And speaking of him, their dynamic evolves.